FlossTube, it's Paula. Welcome to my channel, Stitching in High Heels. This is where I talk about my love of cross stitch and occasionally another craft or two, which you'll probably hear a little bit more about at the end of this video. For all my current subscribers, welcome back. I'm glad you stopped by to visit. If you're a regular but haven't subscribed, thanks for coming back again. If you would consider subscribing, that would be great. And if you, as they say, ring the bell, you'll get notifications of when I upload a new video. I am trying this year to be a lot more consistent. Try to stick to the every 2 weeks, which I think would give me enough to show you guys and have me be a regular part of your viewing schedule. For my new subscribers, I notice I've gotten a couple in the last couple weeks. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you continue to like what you see and you keep coming back. And for anyone who's just stopped by, welcome. Again, I hope you like what you see. If you do, do the FlossTube things, subscribe, like, all that kind of stuff. Also, definitely leave me a comment, ask me a question. I really like the interaction in the community, and it would be great to hear from you. So I'm here with a wrap-up of my BRRINGO, which is a challenge from the monthly magazine Facebook group that's run by Carolyn Zook and Robin Hall. So I did pretty well with those plans. I've got a couple more days to catch up on the one project that I didn't get to touch, so that's pretty good. They do have prizes if you fulfill the whole challenge. I really just use it as a way to get me to touch more of my projects. I'll also update you on how my WIPGO, which is another bingo style channel run by Jessie Marie Does Stuff. She talks about it on her FlossTube channel that I'll link, and there's also a Facebook group for that. So I'll update you on how January went. We got the numbers for February, so I'll show you what I've got up for the schedule in February. I'm really, really excited about how well I did with stitching in January. I've got a lot to show you. I did show you the first 13 days of BRRINGO. I'm not going to go over that again. I'll just go into what I've done since we last saw you on the 13th. And by the way, today is January 28th. I can't believe we're almost done with January already, guys. Where is this time going? And we've all been saying that. I know that. So, but anyway, it's Sunday, January 28th. It's kind of a gray day, warmish here in the Catskills area of New York. It's trying to decide if it wants to rain or snow outside. So it's a good day to stay inside. I got some cleaning that I'm going to do after we get done with this and film a FlossTube. So I noticed some folks did a little bit of a reintroduction on their whip parades, and I kind of thought that was a good idea. So just a quick little blurb about me. My name is Paula. I think I already told you that. I live in the Catskills area of New York State with my husband and our 3 dogs. Every once in a while one will come in and knock the tripod that my camera's on, so be aware of that. I've been stitching since, well, I learned to stitch when I was real little, and through junior high and high school, college, got real busy with all the other things that kids do. But I came back to it when I came home from college in like late 1988, early 1999, and it was something to do to keep my hands busy in the evenings when I was home. And I had a cousin that was getting married, and I stitched a piece for her. And I finished that, gave that to her. My second ever piece was Teresa Wentzler's Castle Sampler, which is the one with the alphabet around the border and the castle in the middle, and then down below are all the minstrels in the court, and they're all stitched over one. And I bought the kit out of an ad in the back of a Just Cross Stitch magazine because there was no such thing as a local needlework shop at that time, or at least that I knew about. And I had, there was no internet, I didn't have internet, we didn't have chat boards, so I had absolutely no idea that I should have been intimidated by even weave, by blended threads, by stitching over one. I just followed the directions and went one stitch at a time, which is what we should all do. And I finished it, I gave it away. I did have a printed picture of it, which over the course of time has gotten lost. I don't regret that I gave it away. I know it's very well loved by the recipient. Even though we're not in contact, I know it was very well loved, and that person understood the time and work that went into it, so I know it's been taken care of. I'd love to have it, but not enough to stitch it again. I've got too much other stuff in my stash to stitch. Let's see, what else can I tell you about my stitching? So the castle was probably the last project I worked on monogamously. After that, I kind of started picking up a couple pieces at a time. Knowing all the crafters in my family, all the women in my family have all been involved in crafting. And other than my aunt, who would be working on multiple sewing projects at a time, everybody else always finished one project at a time. So I always felt kind of bad that I would put something down in the middle, go on to something else, but I always came back to it, so it didn't bother me too much. Well, once I found the AOL discussion boards, the Teresa Wentzler boards, all those internet forums back in the early days of us being online, I found out that I'm definitely not the only one, and I've never looked back. That's also where I learned that collecting supplies and charts is a completely separate hobby from stitching. So, yeah, the internet just kind of fueled my natural inclinations and passion for things. So, that's a little bit more about me. Again, if you have any questions, ask me below. Right now, the past few years, I haven't had a lot of stitching time because I was working my full-time job, my part-time job as a 911 dispatcher, and going to college to finish up a degree. Finished up my degree in emergency management in May, so now I'm down to only my full-time job and my couple of shifts a week at the 911 center. The nice part about the 911 center is that if the phones aren't busy, I have stitching time, and it keeps my mind busy because, probably like most of you, when I get bored I get in trouble, right? And, you know, I'm not a big TV fan. I watch a lot of FlossTube. We watch sports. There's not, you know, reality TV is not my thing. Now that we have streaming services, you know, I'm much more inclined to put on a movie I've seen a few times before than watch new content on TV. Again, I'm pretty sure I'm not alone in that. But since I do have so much to show you, let's get started. Before I do that, I'm going to take a little bit of a drink. This is my mug or cup from the Queen City Stitch Retreat in October. This was part of our swag bag, and I love it. I know Maggie from Kitschy Whips, she threatened to make the cup smaller for this year's retreat. Hope she doesn't. I love a big cup. And look at this, it's got a sparkly straw, guys. Isn't that great? That's my favorite part of the whole mug. And blue's a good color. I love blue, so I was happy about that too. Plus, it does a great job of keeping water cold. And if any of you all are going to the retreat this coming October and you haven't been there before, it's great because they have a water fountain with really great tasting water just outside the ballroom where the retreat is. So it's great to have a mug like that. You can fill it up. You don't have to worry about bottled water or anything like that. Okay, enough rambles. Hold on one second. I'm going to just I think I'm going to move my camera back just a little bit. Okay, that's a little better. I feel like my head was right on the top of the frame before. So I've got a bunch of notes written down. Hopefully I won't forget anything. You can see the stacks over here of all the stuff I've got to show you. And let's get going. So I downloaded, a few months ago, I bought and downloaded, it's a FlossTube video planner. Let's see if you can see that. That's from the Nap Time Stitcher. She's got an Etsy shop, and I like it. It's got, you know, enough room for me to jot down notes, but it doesn't have to be real detailed. So hopefully this will keep me on track, and I won't forget anything I want to tell you guys. So first up, I'm going to tell you about my finishes and FFOs. I'm really, again, like I said, I'm really happy with what I got done this month. So the first three things I'm going to show you are artist trading cards. Laura from Stitching by the Shore, I've talked about it in my last couple videos. Her FlossTube channel, Facebook group, she does an artist trading card swap, and she's got one coming up. I have to show you these and then get them in the mail. They have to be mailed by February 1st. These are small pieces. If you do want to participate, you really do have a couple more days to finish something up and get it in the mail, but we are getting close to kind of the end of the road for that. So the first one I have, this is this is it. Let's see, maybe this will help here. So this is what I did with this. This is one of the snowflake motifs from Shannon Christine's, I think it's winter snowfall chart. So I took one of those, I stitched it on, I believe this was 20 count Aida in 3 metallic threads. It had 3 colors of DMC. I chose 3 metallic threads. And then I fussy cut it. This is, the paper behind it is some pattern paper I found in Michael's. Cut it down to the right size, which is 2.5 by 3.5 inches. And the pack that I got came with some of these fasten-on gems, so I put them on, and that's that. I'm pretty pleased with how that came out as well. And then had some more time, so the next thing I stitched was this. This is Coffee Corner. It's a Stone Street Stitchworks chart. I got it from their Etsy shop. This chart comes in 2 different colorways. There's a classic colorway, which is pretty much what I picked here. They also have a holiday colorway, which has some greenery and some poinsettias. This colorway also has some greenery around it. I cut that off to make it fit the size I needed for the project. This is stitched on perforated paper, 18 count perforated paper. The only color I could get it in was white. So I used some inks and used a brown ink and a metallic gold, which you can't really see a lot. It does show a little bit in person. And I stitched it in the DMCs called for, and then added that sparkly little heart. It's hard to see here. There is a little bit of stitching right here where the steam comes up and makes a heart shape, and then I just put that heart in the middle of that. Put it on some plain white cardstock and used a pattern paper on the back. And then the last one, this is a Doreen Jones chart. It's one of her Friday freebies from her Facebook group. She's incredibly generous on her Facebook group. There's lots of, she comes out, gives a free chart every Friday. And I'm late to the game, but I love her style. So this is, she calls this Winter Cottage. And I stitched this on 22 count Aida or Hardanger fabric, plain white. The snow on the bottom is stitched with number 4 braid in the pearl color, number 32. Again, this is pattern paper from the same pack that my other one was on. And I bought some fasten-on gems in various sizes. They come in a pack at Hobby Lobby. And just did the smoke in different sizes coming up out of the chimney. So I like how this one came out too. So I'll be getting all of those in the mail to Laura, hopefully tomorrow. If not, then Tuesday I can run down. So those are my first 3. Those are all starts, finishes, FFOs, all 3. I got all 3 categories. And then the next 2 finishes I have were part of my BRRINGO calls, which is, and my goal, I used these for several calls, and I had hoped to get these 2 finished. They've been languishing for far too long, and I reached my goal on both of them. So the first one is To All a Good Night, and this is a kit. It's a Shepherd's Bush kit. I bought it from the Silver Needle, I don't know when, and I don't remember when exactly I started this. I think I might have started this in 2022 with the first BRRINGO event, maybe. So it's, since it came as a kit, it's stitched on the kit fabric with all the kit materials. I think it's a 36 count, might be a 32 count linen, 1 thread over 2, and it's all fancy floss, which was provided with the kit. And I don't know if you can see, there's a couple little, there's some tiny buttons and beads that are on there. They all came with it as well. It did come with the materials to finish this. I think they intended to be either a needle book or a pillow. I'm not sure how I'm going to finish it. It's definitely bigger than I like for an ornament, but I might finish it as maybe like a door hanger and use it that way. I don't really use needle books much, other than the one I got at the Queen City Stitch Retreat. But I don't use needle books or needle pillows much, to be honest. So, but that's that's where that is. That'll probably go in the bin to be finished if I do a WIPGO finishes for next year. And then the next piece is Deck the Paws by Twisted Willow Designs, and that came from the 2020 Just Cross Stitch Ornament issue. I changed up the colors of the dogs to match our dogs that we had at the time. The dogs in the chart are shades of brown, and they're adorable, but I just thought it was a real quick and easy opportunity to change things up, and these dogs definitely remind us of ours. So this is stitched on a Mystery Silk Weaver Solo. Well, it's a Silk Weaver Solo. It's 32 count Lugana. There was no name to the color because it was a one-of-a-kind, one-off thing. So, and the nice part is it's an ornament, so, you know, I've got another half of the fabric to use for the next one. So that's all my finishes, but that's pretty good. That's, well, finishes since the last time I saw you guys. I did finish the first ornament. That was the first call for my WIPGO board for ornament cuts, but I'll review that with you guys later. So next up are, I'm going to show you all the WIPs that were part of my, put that over there, part of my BRRINGO calls. And I got to everything except I was supposed to put 100 stitches in on Earth Dancer. Haven't done that yet. I hope to get that done before the end of the month. But we'll talk about her in a little bit because she comes up again. And I think these are kind of in the order that I worked on them. Some of them, like To All a Good Night, which, by the way, last video I mistakenly called all this column. It's To All a Good Night, and Deck the Paws. They came up once or twice. I got them finished, and then I had to do substitutions. So after, I don't know if it was the 14th, whatever, after our last video, one of the calls was on the 12th day, and this is a 12 Days of Christmas piece. It was designed by the Cat's Whiskers. I couldn't really find a copyright date on this. I think it was early 2000s. And I've always loved this piece, and I started it the last time I was able to do BRRINGO, which I think was 2022. I'm stitching it on a piece of 32 count opalescent white Belfast with Weeks Dye Works in the color Bethlehem. So there's that. But I've got a question, guys. So you can see it's pretty, I love the colors in this, but you can see that the variegation, the changes in colors are pretty close together. There's not a lot of, there's a short length of thread in each color, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So this is the first square with the drummers at the top. But I got looking at this, and what I'm not sure I want to do, given how quickly the colors change on this, every other square, you'll see here, like the, I think these are pipers. So see, every other square you stitch almost like a CC work. You stitch the background and the figures themselves are white. The fabric shows through. And I'm not sure, now that I'm working on this, and let me show you again, I'll show you the border. You can see here in the border really how quickly those colors change. See that? I think it's showing up fairly well. If you can see how quickly those colors change. So I'm not sure that those other alternate squares would look great in this color. So I'm almost thinking I might pull out one of the colors in the thread, a DMC that kind of matches, and stitch those other squares in a color like that. Or maybe I use more than one DMC color. Maybe I kind of rotate that around. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. If you think that it would be fine and I should just go ahead and stitch in the thread that I've got, let me know that too. I'm kind of curious, guys. Let me know what you think. But I did get a decent amount of progress on that. I'm pretty happy with it. I didn't have a lot of time to stitch the day that was called. And by the way, for BRRINGO, the goal is 100 stitches or an hour on each project. So, you know, that it's really not strenuous. I tended to use it as the piece that I was going to work on for the day that the number was called. But that was my preference. Like I said, the goal is 100 stitches or an hour. So if you're working on other things, it's really not too burdensome. Next up was Siam Fusion, which was also one of my WIPGO calls for January. And this is by Sampler Cove, and I know I looked at the copyright the last time we talked about this during my WIP parade. I think this is like a 2004 chart. It's old enough that the picture on it is actually a photograph, and I'm doing this bigger one here. So I did get one day on it. It was another day where I didn't have a huge amount of stitching time, but I'm pretty happy with what I did get done. And let's hope I can see you. I'm doing this, I think it's 1 thread over 2, I don't think it's 2, with the called for Soie Cristal. It's a Karen Collection silk, and I'm doing it on charcoal 28 count linen. And there's my progress. So I had part of this first motif finished, and I went ahead and finished that one, started the second one, and my goal for my WIPGO calls is 4 days. So that pretty much means I'll pull it out and stitch on it 4 times. If it happens to be an hour, that's great. If it happens to be a day when I've got 4 hours to stitch, that's great too. I just want to touch it 4 different days. I figure that'll give me a decent amount of progress. So this has to come out 3 more times to meet that goal. I'd love it if I could get that done before the end of the month. But like Jessie says, my board, my rules, as long as I get that done by the end of the year, I'm going to be satisfied. So there's that. Next up was Snapdragon. It's a Nora Corbett, one of her flower pixies. And I started this at the Queen City Stitch Retreat as a stitch along or start along with Kelly from Pages and Stitches. Her channel is Pages 3 Stitches. And she's got a great channel. Go over and check her out. She's a lot of fun. I enjoy watching her. It was great to meet her in person. I'm not sure if she's going to Queen City again, but I would love to have a chance to hang out with her again. She started her piece on I think it's a light green. It's either a light green or a light blue, 32 count. And mine is on a piece of pink fabric that appears to be a 28 count. I didn't have a name on it. I know when Mary Jane's Cross and Stitch was liquidating their inventory when they were closing, I bought a bunch of random pieces of fabric just because the prices were great. So I think this is where that came from, and I have no idea what the color is. It is blowing out just a little bit. Yeah, I can't get you a good, that's a little better. That's pretty good right there. That's what the fabric color is like. So what did I work on? I worked over on this side of the skirt over in there, and there's where I'm at. So some of those spots you see that look like missing stitches, they're going to be beads. She doesn't have a ton of beads, but she does have some. And she stitches up really quickly when I get a chance to work on her, so hopefully she'll, well, she is on my WIPGO board. She'll see some more time this year, and she's one that's easy to take to work with me, so she may see more than the 4 days on the WIPGO calls. And then so for BRRINGO, you can always do whips or new starts. My goal for this year is to work on my whips. I started the year with 31. If you saw my last video, you saw them. I would like to finish off some of those. My goal isn't necessarily to reduce my number of whips, but I want to get some of those projects finished, and I want to get some good progress on the others. But since I had completed the 2 ornaments that I was working on for BRRINGO, when they were called again, I had to pick a new project. So I had already, as part of my WIPGO call, started A Little Joy by Just Nan. And sorry about the glare, that's not too bad there. So this is from the 2002 Just Cross Stitch Ornament issue. And I had picked up the fabric, called for fabric for this. I also have, if you can see, there's a small charm right there in the center. I have that charm, and the stitching in that is 1/1 on 32 count. I have the linen for that as well. I'm, to be honest, not looking forward to that particular part of it, but it is what it is. And here's where I'm at. So I got a good start on that. For my WIPGO boards, for this ornament part, I really just want to get a good start on these. I'd love to get them all finished, but if I don't, that's not a big deal. So that's where I'm at on that. This is the over 2 piece. I haven't started the over 1 piece yet. And my next call was My Necessity by Heartstring Samplery. And this is one of the samplers in her coffee series. So I'm stitching this one 2/2 on Winter Moon linen, which is a standard, let me take these magnets off here quick, standard Zweigart color. And I'm using 2 strands of Cinders, sorry my nose is itching here, 2 strands of Cinders by Gentle Art. And here's where I'm at with this. This actually got 2 days. 2 days or 3 days in BRRINGO. I stitched on it the number of days that were called for. So this band here, I found that one kind of challenging. There wasn't, you know, it's a band sampler, so usually in the bands you can kind of get into a rhythm, and even though these berry and leaf motifs were, they were repeated, just I didn't find a good rhythm, so that band took a little bit to stitch. But this next one with the hearts down here, I figured out a pattern and a rhythm, so that should go pretty quickly even though there's quite a bit of stitching in it. So I'm just over half done with this, half finished with this piece. You can see on here, so I started this band here with the hearts, and I really only have 1 more row of words, 2 more rows of words, and so I've got like 5 or 6 bands after I finish those hearts. So I should be able to get some really good progress on this one. And if possible, if that could be finished this year, that's another one that's easy to travel with, because it's just 1 color thread. It's easy to see. The chart's easy to read. So it's entirely possible that may eventually be finished this year. Next up for BRRINGO, and this is also part of WIPGO, was Winter Rose Manor. And I know you guys know what that looks like. It's by Brenda Gervais. And I'm stitching mine on Shale Ada in 18 count by Picture This Plus. And I'm working on, I started on the house. I've got kind of this weird thing. I love pieces with houses, especially big houses. I love samplers that have houses on them. I get really bored, and I really don't like to stitch them. I'm using mostly the called for threads. I am using the Weeks Dye Works conch that's called for. I know a lot of people have subbed it out because they wanted it to be pinker. I think it works well with my fabric. You can see it there. It does show up a little better in real life. It does look a little faded here. Things are kind of blown out. And my piece of shale actually has a little bit of a pinkish tone to it. It looks very gray here. But that's where I'm at with Winter Rose Manor. This gets 1 more, this was also one of my WIPGO calls for this month, so this gets 1 more day, which will probably be later today while my husband and I watch football. This is an easy one to pick up. I'm using 1 thread, or 1 strand of floss over 1 Aida square, and it's, I believe it's 18, I don't think it's 16. I'm really happy with how far I've gotten on that. I'm kind of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel with the house. And then our last BRRINGO call was to stitch on a piece by a non-US designer. I don't remember what all the prompts were. I do remember this one. It was the last one called on the 25th. So initially I thought I was going to work on one of my Victoria sampler pieces, but being wintertime and my hands are dry and working with silks isn't always the most enjoyable experience, and I've already got to do 3 more days on Siam Fusion. I decided not to work on a Victoria sampler, and I had started Blue Dreams by Barbara Anna. That came out in 2023, and it was a stitch along, or start along if you prefer, with Laura from Stitching by the Shore. I think she finished hers. I think hers is finished. And she used a little bit. I happen to have a piece of the called for fabric, which I'm enjoying, but she had one that was a little more of a sunset shade, and it's gorgeous. So going over, I think it wasn't her most recent video. It might have been 2 videos ago. I'm really behind. There's been so much fantastic content on FlossTube that I'm really behind in watching. I think I'm about 10 days behind, and I know one of her videos. I'm pretty sure she finished it. If not, she's pretty close. Oh, there's a hanging thread. Let me get rid of that. So I worked on this for my BRRINGO call. Actually, I worked on this yesterday. This is also, I'm also a member of WIP Warriors. It's a Facebook group. It is closed right now. It opens up in November for new members. But this weekend they're doing a challenge which they call the Strident Stitch Along or Strident Sal challenge, something like that. Anyway, it's where you focus on stitch along pieces that you have on the go. So since this is a stitch along, I worked on this last evening. And what did I do? I finished up this blue curl here. I put in this. I worked down in here. Oh, that's really good depiction of what the colors are. I put that other boat that doesn't have a sail in and started some of the darker blue. So I got some good progress last night. I'm very pleased. This stitches up really quickly. This is 32 count Lugana or Jobelin in the color terracotta, which is I think the recommended might be linen, but it's the recommended color, and it's with all the called for DMC threads. And that's 2/2. So I'm really pleased with the progress on that. If I didn't need to do another day on Winter Rose Manor, if I didn't need to get another day in for my WIPGO call, I probably would continue on working on that today. And last up is a piece I worked on a couple times. I worked on Friday evening and yesterday during the day for the Strident Sal, and this is Summer Quaker. I know you guys have seen this. This is by Leela Studio. Came out last spring, and I started it as a start along with Beth from Books and Crafts and Laura from Stitching by the Shore. And I'm using all of the called for threads, which are DMC, and I'm using 16 count Ada by Fiber on a Whim in the color Latte. Latte was the color that the cover model was stitched on. And so I filled in the top two rows of waves here. I got all of that filled in. I had a little bit of the light blue one done. Finished the second one. Finished up the grass on the top. Started that fish. Started the gray. There's a long gray line on top of the waves. So I got some really good progress on this. This is another one. It's easy to stitch. It goes really quickly. It's a lot of fun. I love the colors in it. And I want to do a lot of people started, depending on how you start, a lot of people started up in the corner and they're doing the border with all the Quaker motifs. I started in the middle just to make sure that I had enough widthwise on my piece. And I wanted to get the center seam done because there is a lot of fill-in and a lot of solid stitching in the water. So I wanted to get that done. But it's going really fast. The nice thing was that I was able to, once I did the dark color that kind of outlined the waves, then it was a lot of easy fill-in. You don't have to refer to the chart all the time, and it was easy to work on while I was working in between phone calls because, pick it up, put it down, you're working in the same color. And those are all the pieces that I've touched on since we visited last. And just looking at my notes, so we talked about my BRRINGO projects. So I talked about WIPGO and that it's a bingo style challenge that Jessie Marie Does Stuff she came up with for herself and then shared it, and it's really become quite a thing. And there is a Facebook group, like I said, she talks about it on her videos. So each month there are 2 numbers that are called, and those are the projects that you, or the squares, tasks. People have done lots of different things with their boards that you work on. So I set up 3 boards. I have a standard WIP or work in progress board, which I'm using to, like I said, I'm put 4 days. I just want to get some good progress on the projects that I have there. I talked about, I think I talked about last time, I put Garden Verses on there 5 times because I really want to get, she's the one piece that I truly want to get finished this year. And ironically, I only touched her once in January. But, so I figure 5 times is pretty good for her. And she doesn't have, she's a very early Mirabilia, so she doesn't have any beads. So once I get done, I'm done with the stitching. I'm done, which is really cool. But so how did I do for WIPGO? The calls, my WIP calls this year were Winter Rose Manor, which I have 3 days in on, and I told you I have 1 more day, which will probably be later today while we're watching football. And Siam Fusion, which I worked on once, so I need to work on 3 more times. Today's the 28th. It might be tough to get it in before the end of January. May sneak over to February 1st. We'll see. But that would be good. That'll be good to get that in. And then I have a board. I had, well, probably 31 ornaments, close to that, that I've stitched in the past that I never FFO'd or fully finished. FFO is a fully finished object, if you've not heard that term before. So I would pull them out, look at them, and get completely overwhelmed by the number of ornaments that I had. So I thought that if I set up a board where I only had to work on 2 of them a month, I wouldn't feel so overwhelmed and I could do them that way. So the 2 that I pulled that were called for this month were Peppermint Twist, which I've gotten finished, and this was a Little House Needleworks ornament, and I'm really happy with how that came out. Let's see. You see, I did a beaded edge, a beaded hanger. This bead was something I had in my stash. Finally figured out a use for it. I'm really pleased with how this came out. And then the fabric on the back is this really cool peppermint candy fabric that I know I bought with this piece in mind. So there's that. Really happy with how that came out. And the other piece that got called is Bringing Home Christmas. Pardon me here. I'm doing this a little bit out of order of how I had them stacked up, but that's okay. So this is another Little House Needleworks design, and here it is. I don't, honestly, unless there's a tag on the fabric, I don't remember what I stitched them on. There are a lot of Picture This Plus pieces. They had a Fabric of the Month club, and you could get, I got 9 by 13 pieces. They're 32 count, but what the colors are, I don't remember. So here's the ornament, and that's the fabric that I want to use on the back of it. So I'm running way later than I thought I would be today. So I probably not, I'd hoped maybe I could get this done today. I know what I want to do on the back of it, or for the edging, I mean, the back is the fabric I'm holding up here. It's going to be another edging that's a little bit time intensive, and there's a couple parts of it. I know what I want it to look like. How I get it there, I'm not completely positive on, so it's going to be a little bit of trial and error. So it's going to take me a little bit. I was hoping to get to it this afternoon. Probably not going to happen because I do want to watch the NFL game come on at 3:30. So maybe tomorrow night. But putting it together, it's going to be a pillow ornament like the other one, and then I'm going to do I know what I want to do for the edging, and getting that worked out is going to be the bit that takes a little bit. And my third board, in going through my stash, I found a shoebox where back in, like, from 2002 through 2004, maybe even 2001, I think it was Silk Weaver, old Silk Weaver, I don't remember. There was a shop or a manufacturer that sold ornament cuts of the called for fabrics for ornaments in each just cross stitch ornament issue. Bought a bunch of them and then never stitched the ornaments. Bought cuts for the ornaments that I really loved and figured I was going to stitch, and they've been stored away. So it's kind of, you know, I hate to say it's 20 years ago. So it's kind of time to get them going. So I picked, I think I had a few more than 25. You're seeing a trend here, right? But I loaded them into another WIPGO board, and each month I want to get a good start on them. If I don't get them fully finished, that's fine. If I get them finished, that would be great, and that gives me something to do for an FFO board for next year's WIPGO if that's a success for me. So the first one that was called was Paws Off, which was a Dragon Dreams design, and I forget which year this was. I didn't write it down. Did I? I did not write it down, but I showed you this, I think, in my last video. I started and finished it this month. It's adorable. I'd love to say I'm going to FFO these this year. I don't think that's realistic. So that's another start and finish. And then the Just Nan I showed you, a Little Joy, was my other call. And even if I don't touch that again before the end of the month, I've got a good start on it. I'm really happy with where I am on that one. So that's where we are for January. For February, the numbers that were called were 3 and 24. And I made a mistake in my Facebook post in the group about which pieces I was going to be working on. So, because I thought it was 3 and 23 for some reason, it's actually 23 and 24. So number 3 for my work in progress board is my necessity, which you've already seen. So that'll see at least 4 more stitching sessions this month, which is really good. And I'm happy about, because I figured out how I'm going to attack that band with the hearts. I'd like to get that done, and maybe even the next band of words this month. We'll see how that goes. And the other one is Earth Dancer. And here we go. Here's her cover chart. She is designed by Toll in the Garden, which was Marilyn Levitt emblem. And here she is what she'll look like. So she's been stalled for a while because all I have left is all of the fringing in her dress and all of the beading in her dress, which is like her entire bodice. Here, there's a big piece of the front of her slipper is beaded. You know, there's beaded almost emblems here. Let's see if you can get a good look at her. So I was thinking that I had stitched her on a piece of 36 count fabric, and I was really worried about how the beads were going to fit. I was going through some stuff and I found the other half of this piece of fabric. This is, I believe this is another Silk Weaver solo. I know it's Silk Weaver, I believe it was a solo. I don't think there was a name on the other half of the fabric. But I did find out that it's a 32 count fabric. So the beading should not be as bad as I thought it was going to be. The model was stitched on 28, and I was thinking this was on 36. I was terrified of how I was going to get the beads on and how frustrating it was going to be. I don't think it's going to be that bad. So I have to work on her once for my BRRINGO call for this month. If you remember, I said I didn't pull her out. And that was before I found out she was on 32 count fabric, and I just kind of thought to myself, I don't want to deal with this right now. So I have to work on her once for that, and she should get 4 sessions in February. So hopefully I can make some really good progress on her. I'm not going to say it's realistic that she gets finished, but it's possible. So those are my 2 work in progress calls for February. For and I've got things out of order here, bear with me. Okay, we'll go this way. So for my FFO ornament challenge, the 2 pieces that I have to FFO are this This was a freebie by Victoria Sampler. I know it doesn't look terribly Christmassy. It's got a light green, and it's just some open work. It was a great practice for Hardanger. So I have that to FFO. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that one. I haven't thought about these yet. And then the other one is All Is Calm, which is a Little House Needleworks design. And this, the fabric is still attached. So I know that this is 36 count Belfast from Picture This Plus and the color Heritage. And I know I've had this for a while because it's still called Colorscapes, which was one of their earlier, I don't know if you want to say branding, but one of the earlier things they put on their tags. And then the ornaments that I'm going to start this month are, let me look up the name of this real quick. It is Joy of the Holidays by Needle Play Needlework Designs. And it is this one, yeah, I keep going the wrong way. This one right here. So it's got some drawn thread work, cut work, I'm not sure which. Got some glare there. But that'll be fun to work on. And the other one is apparently Joy is going to be my word for February. This Joy needle roll right here. And that's by Jeanette Douglas Designs. I have two of these other ones on my tree already. Peace and Love, I think. She did a series over several years. And they finish up really quickly, so they've got great instructions on them, and that'll be fun to get done. That's WIPGO. I do have a few other plans. So my birthday is next weekend, and I'm planning a birthday start, and it is going to be a piece that it's been calling to me for quite a while, excuse me, and I've been looking to do some more traditional embroidery. It's just been something I felt like doing. So this piece kind of scratches that itch, if you will. And it's going to be in this bag, which was made for me by Kelly from Pages and Stitches, and she gifted it to me at the Queen City Stitch Retreat. And it's got this great zipper pull on it. I think she made that as well. But that's really cool. And she put, I have it on another project, but she also had a really neat needle minder. And I have it was a small shop or a friend of hers, and I have the card for that with the needle minder. So you should see that soon. So the piece that I'm starting is Sarah Mary Larkworthy, and this is a Heaven and Earth chart. And I don't know if you can see, but all of those flowers are satin stitched, the vines are stem stitched, the words are cross stitched, and there's eyelets up in the top. So this should be a really fun piece. I've been wanting to start this for a while, and I don't know. I'm not sure when she was published. I don't see a date on here when she was published. However, it's not 2018, so it's not that old. But I really haven't seen a lot of people working on her. Now that could be just because I came to FlossTube well after she was released, or maybe she hasn't been super popular. I'm not sure. So I'm going to be stitching her, hold on while I get all my threads out here. I'm going to be stitching her on a piece of 36 count Sienna by Tropical Stitches. And this is it's an Edinburgh linen. And oh man, the colors, that's a better representation. It's a really nice neutral tan color. And, oh, this is the wrong thread that I wanted to show you. So I was really surprised because, bear with me just a second. Maybe I put it away. Nope, there it is. Nope. So I was really surprised because when you look at, yeah, I put the thread away. So when you look at the cover, you can see these light stitches there. They look like they're in white. And like especially, you know, in this border here. And where else are they? Some of they're white flowers and some of those light colored berries. They look very much like they're white. And when I got the threads out, they were actually, it's actually called for, the DMC color that's called for is actually 739. And I'm not sure if it's just the fact that, if it's the photography, the cover model, or if it's the fact that it's, oh, here's what I was looking for. Or if it's the fact that it's charted for a Verissois with a DMC conversion. I'm not sure. But when everything I had that I really wanted to work on, it's 739 is the DMC color. And there's not a lot of contrast with this fabric. And the fabrics that I have where the 739 would show nicely, I didn't want all those stitches to be super ghosty. So I wasn't sure what I was going to do. So when I picked up the threads, because I needed multiple skeins, she's not a tiny girl. So when I picked up the threads, here's the other colors for her. I picked up 3865 and 3866, which are these last two over here. And my initial thought is that I'm going to go with the 3865, which is the brighter one here. But if that turns out to be too bright for the rest of these colors, I do have the 3866, and we will go from there. Why is this? But here are her colors. So I've got to get those threads on some thread drops. But I think that's going to be a nice combination on this fabric. Let's see that. So, and the threads are going to be on I've got the thread keep I've got on there is, let's do this, from Siggy's Closet on Etsy. She's really great to work with, and she has some really nice, she's got thread drops, scissor fobs. So, just a little elephant, which is my favorite animal. So, being my birthday start, it's going to be in a bag from one of my favorite bags. One of the pieces I was really looking to start for a while. Sorry about the road noise. That was plow truck. So I guess it's switched over to snow. And my favorite animal on the key fob. So that's going to be a really fun project, and I'm looking forward to starting that next weekend. I've got a couple other things I want to start in February. Another one, so I did get an invitation to the Queen City Stitch Retreat in October, and I did accept, and I am going to be going, and their featured designer or artist is Autumn Lane Stitchery, and they have kind of a couple pieces that are kind of unofficial start-alongs or stitch-alongs for, like they did last year with Charlotte, but the piece, I have this piece from them that I got. This is To All a Good Night, and that's that piece. And I got this last year in the Black Needle Society Advent box. So it's fully kitted. I've got a piece of 28 count opalescent white linen and all of the threads there. So I'll get them on thread drops and get started on this. Not sure exactly when I'm going to start it, but I figure it's kind of more wintry than Christmas. Even though Santa is in it, and he will be. But it's more wintry, so I'll probably feel like working on that throughout the month of February. And one last start that I have that I'd like to do is I belong to the Fox and Rabbit Patreon group, and you'll see this was actually released last year to the Patreon group, but they did update it for this year being a leap year. So this is a temperature chart. Let's see, and so I got stalled out trying to figure out colors for the color ranges, but I looked at their suggestions, and I think after I looked at the range of temperatures for my area, I think it'll work pretty well. I'm going to adjust them slightly, but I'm going to use all the suggested colors. And I have big plans for this. So you can see they're all individual hearts there. So I'm also tracking the high temperature, and there's little bows on each hanger there. So on days where we get precipitation, I'm going to make those bows, I'm going to stitch those bows in a Krynic. So they'll be sparkly. Days that we don't have precipitation, they'll be just regular DMC. They only use probably like 939, like a dark blue for the border and the hangers. And then instead of, so they're charted to be individual, you know, cross-stitched hearts. I think I'm going to switch, and I want to do rose, yeah, Rhodes hearts. That's one of my favorite stitches. I love doing them, and I think it would be just a little bit different. We'll see how that goes. I may regret that going down the road. But I am going to stitch it on a piece of 32 count vintage, what is the name of this? It's a Zweigart color, vintage Stormy Clouds, which is their, oh, this is really blown out. I'm not sure. It's their printed gray fabric. It's got a little bit of gray modeling. You can kind of see it a little bit there. So I thought that would be appropriate for a weather type chart. And I'm keeping this, I mean, I haven't shown you most of my project bags because most of them are the vinyl or PVC, whatever they're made out of, the plastic-ish ones, the cheap ones from Amazon. But this is a So Much to Love bag in Winnie the Pooh fabric. And it's scenes from Pooh's Blustery Day. I think that's the name of the story. And I thought that would be very appropriate for a temperature chart or a weather-based chart. What else do I have? Sorry, I'm going to look at my notes. I know there's something I'm forgetting to tell you guys. So, and I want to learn. So for February, I also want to get some work in on Garden Verses, even though she's not one of my WIPGO calls. And that's kind of why I picked my WIPGO tasks the way I did, because I didn't want to feel like those were the only pieces that I was going to be able to work on for the month, because when I make rules like that, my brain rebels and I wouldn't do anything. And I'd end up not stitching at all. So I know that about myself. So this should be a good balance between getting some progress on those pieces that I wanted to get progress on and being able to stitch what I want. So I want to work on Garden Verses. I also have a little bit of secret stitching that I want to get started. I don't need that until later this year, but I'd like to get started on it. I do have, a couple of years ago, I built myself a spreadsheet to track my stitching. I don't necessarily count stitches, although I do have markup RXP, and if I get more fluent in that, it'll be definitely easier to track stitches. I kind of keep track of hours, although that's not in my actual spreadsheet layout. But after watching Blitz Stitches, and he has shared his tracker. It's available. He's got, I don't know if it's a link tree or what, but he will share it for free. Maybe it's on Google Docs. But I looked at his, he tracks a bunch of things that I really wasn't interested in tracking. So I got inspiration from him and I built my own spreadsheet. And I've had it for this will be the 3rd year that I have it, although the last couple of years I'm really good for a couple months and then I fall down. So I'd really like to track through the whole year this year. I'm really going to work hard on that. So I'd like to make sure I keep tracking my stitching in February. I want to just get back to doing some crochet. I've picked up a couple patterns lately. I picked up a little kit for, was it origami? It's not really a Japanese animal, but I picked up a little kit for a stuffed elephant that I'd like to do for myself in Michael's, Hobby Lobby. It was pretty inexpensive and it was an elephant, right? So I'd like to get back to that. Also, it's been a very long time since I did any knitting. So I'd like to get back to knitting, and I don't know why this is such an obsession, but I really want to knit myself a pair of socks. So we'll see. They seem small enough. People like Elizabeth Ann can stitch. I see people knitting them, and they seem to go pretty quick, and that's always where I've stalled with knitting. Like, I started a sweater at one point, and it was easy enough to do. It was all stockinette stitch, and I got bored 3/4 of the way through the back of the sweater. And I know that's what it was. I just got bored and I never went back to it. So that's one of my goals for this year. Teach myself to knit socks, get back to knitting. And let's see. Other than that, Hannah from the Oki Stitcher. check out her channel. She's working on some great stuff. She's actually working on some printed canvas stitched pieces, and it looks pretty cool. They look a lot better than the last kind of cross-stitch things I saw in printed fabric. And I'm very interested in following along on how she's working on them. Also, she is active duty in the United States Air Force, so go give her some love. Thank her for her service. She's in the process of changing jobs within the Air Force. So she's talked a little bit about that process, and that's kind of interesting to me, just to see how that works in the military side rather than out in civilian life. So go give her some love, check out what she's working on. But Hannah, I know we talked about you wanted to see the Dragon Dreams piece that I had previously stitched, and we talked about Teresa Wentzler dragons too. I haven't forgotten, I just didn't pull them out for today. I'll try to get them out for my next video. And let's see. So since I am tracking, I do have just a few stats for January, even though it's not completely the end of the month. So through January 27th, which was yesterday, I've stitched 26 out of the 27 days. Thanks to my spreadsheet, I know that on January 12th, it was the one day that I didn't pick up a needle at all. I'd worked, I think, an extra shift. I'd worked like 3 shifts in a row at 911 on top of my full-time job, and I was just tired and didn't pick up a needle that day. I've touched, thanks to BRRINGO and WIPGO, I touched a total of 20 projects throughout the month. I had 5 starts in January. 4 of them were starts and finishes. So the 3 trading cards, the 3 ATCs, and pause off. So they were starts and finishes. And I've had 6 finishes. So the trading cards, the ornament that I started, and then the 2 ornaments that I finished up as part of BRRINGO. So that's it for me. This is probably a lot longer than I anticipated it was going to be. But like I said, I had a lot of stuff I really wanted to show you guys, and I was excited to share it with you. So thanks for stopping by. I'm going to go try to get this edited and uploaded. We'll see how that goes. And let's see, other than, there's not much going on life-wise here, which is fine. We picked some vacation dates and that kind of stuff. Trying to think, nothing really major, which is okay. It's that time of year where we can kind of just settle in and kind of relax for a little bit. So that's what we're doing. Hope to get some, decluttering and stuff done around the house. I'm also going to be going through my stash. I definitely want to decrease the size of that. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be just doing it as giveaways, if I'll look at one of the stash unload groups on Facebook. I really don't think I want to deal with eBay. We'll see. But if you guys have had success or have a go-to place for looking for stash, let me know. Leave me a comment. And other than that, I hope to see you in 2 weeks. I hope you're stitching on what makes you happy. I hope you're finding time for stitching, making the time for stitching. In the craziness of the world, it's kind of nice to have that to fall back on. I know we've really found that out over the last 3 years, that we're blessed to have a hobby that can bring us some calm, even if it's just for a few minutes at a time. So again, I hope you liked what you saw. Like the video, leave me a comment. If you feel like subscribing, that would be great. Ring the bell, you'll know when my next video comes out. Hope to get this edited and posted in the next couple days. So see you soon. Love ya.